Hello, welcome to the Creative Currents podcast. My name is Dylan Clayton. I am your host, and with me today I have Mr. Chris Hall.
Hi, happy to be here.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Always a pleasure. So why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself, Chris?
Well, there we go. That's it. My name is Chris. I'm an audio engineer by trade, I guess we could say.
Mm.
And we've known each other for quite a while now
Yeah,
as friends, and then now doing, similar stuff in a similar industry and similar studies.
not quite colleagues, but more or less. Yeah.
Yeah, more or less adjacent colleagues, long distance colleagues.
Sure.
From Perth originally. Now I live in Sydney. Did the cross
Mm.
country move, a bit of a sacrifice for work. And I love audio. I love music. I love getting shit done. I'm a bit of a hustler when it comes to getting things organized and things planned. And it's kind of a bit built into my nature, a bit of a persuasive person, a bit of a, project planner, get stuff, have a good time.
Get shit done.
Get shit done. I think that's a good attitude to have in this industry. Still fairly new to this industry too. I've had a good wealth of experience so far, and it's taught me a lot. And I'm grateful to be where I am now. But I think there's still a long journey ahead. But it's been great.
Great.
I mean,
Well,
that touches on me and my industry. But also, I like to skateboard, and I listen to way too much pop music.
what are you currently bumping?
Oh gosh, anything Charlie XCX
Charlie,
right now is
yeah.
pretty big.
Rat Summer's coming up over
I know,
here.
and there's remixes coming as well.
Yeah.
So I think I'm looking forward to that. And yeah, I mean that's on repeat. Yeah.
So you touched a little bit on what you're currently doing.
Mm.
Why don't you go into a little bit more depth about what your job is right now?
Sure. So right now I work at Rode Microphones. Very blessed to be able to work at such a well-known named company. And that they're based in Sydney. They actually produce and manufacture almost everything in Australia, which I didn't know. A lot of electronics, a lot of companies make stuff all around the world. A lot of SMT, which is the digital boards and things that go on a lot of electronics, is made in big countries like China. Some made in India and Thailand. But Rode has a bit of a different approach where they pretty much make everything in Sydney at their main campus, which means that there's a lot of people that work for Rode. And also means that, especially during a global shutdown, which feels like a while ago now, they were able to keep going. And I'm very thankful to be on the other side of that now. But I wasn't at Rode then, and I am now. I've been there almost 2 years. I started off working in their service department, so repairing, fixing mics, troubleshooting with clients, customers, setups, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And now I'm their global coordinator for pretty much everybody's learning and development when it comes to our products.
That's a massive role.
It is a massive role. And I love it.
Yeah.
When I first moved to Sydney, actually, I wasn't working for Rode. I moved there because my partner had a job, and I went over with no job. And I did a few things, which we'll probably talk about later. But yeah, eventually came into Rode. And now, anytime someone needs to be brought into Rode, they need to know everything about all of our pre-existing products. And they need to know everything about the stuff that's up and coming, which isn't announced. So it's quite a big responsibility. I have to learn a lot about lots of new technologies because our new stuff that comes out is changing. It's evolving right up until launch day, even the day of. So it's quite a bit on my shoulders to make sure everyone in our service, repair teams, troubleshooting teams, product design teams, even our marketing teams as well, know what our stuff does, how it's going to be used, how to troubleshoot it, hear it from, an audio person, someone who's used the equipment before, not just at Rode, but, as an industry person, and get into the minds of the people that are going to be using our stuff. I think that's really important because I think, it's easy to get into a bit of a bubble. If you're ever making something, you're so focused on it, right? You're thinking like, this is the best, and no, this feature won't matter, or we don't need to make this easy to use. It's easy enough. And then you have somebody else use it who might not be in that bubble.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't make sense to them. So that's a big part of, what I do as well.
Well, I still think it's really funny. I thought we're using the Rode
Rodecaster, yeah.
And you told me about the podcasting presets. I thought it was just plug and play.
I mean, that's the thing is a lot of the stuff is plug and play. And then there's all these deeper things. I mean, Rode's a really big audio company. They've been around, for quite a long time. So, for the consumer, they're great. And then for the prosumer, there's all that extra stuff to dive
Yeah.
into. So, as someone who studied audio, I use lots of Rode equipment. I've used lots of equipment all over the
In
place.
general, yeah.
So yeah, I'm just grateful to be able to be at Rode, play
Wicked.
around with new stuff, and yeah, it's cool to see stuff that's not released yet and
So
play with that.
we'll get a little bit of a move on. So how did you get started in audio? Well, just in the creative industry in general?
Yeah, well, growing up, I listened to a lot of music with mum and dad. They're always kind of like music people. They never played instruments, but I grew up
Mm.
around a lot of music in the house and a lot of theater and stuff like that. And I always wanted to, as a kid, do some sort of dance, or I think I did karate and taekwondo and really interested in that kind of stuff. And then when it came around to high school, when I was much younger, that's quite a while ago now, I went to an arts college
Yeah.
and I studied theater and Western art music. And I couldn't play an instrument. I could kind of play guitar, but I could kind of hold a tune. So
Do you
they
play
put
anything now?
no.
No, I'm the same.
Not anymore, but I did singing, so that was my main thing. So
Sure.
I studied theater in high school. I did a lot of dance, had to study music as a part of that. And that's where that really, really started. I mean, being in a theater, performing in a theater is an amazing experience.
Mm.
But I think you get to see a lot more behind the scenes than some would expect when you're performing. I mean, the rehearsal process, you're seeing lighting rigs be changed, you're seeing backdrops being moved, you're seeing a lot of tech, a lot of equipment. And I really liked that stuff, that part about it.
Yeah.
Love performing, but I was more interested in, getting a wireless headset attached and where is that receiver going to?
See, I
And
was the same. I my high school was very, like, shitty public high school in a bad neighborhood, but, like, even when we did, like, school productions and stuff like that, I was acting as stage manager, and that was always the
yeah,
background is the fun part, I
it
think.
is. And I mean, that's the real cogs that keep it all turning. I
Mm.
mean, a show is great if you have great dancers and actors and all that, but you can have great actors in a shitty set
Yeah.
and it just doesn't feel as great. So I think it's those people looking at the production side of things that really make it feel more immersive and make the show run. I mean, you know, I've seen films with not so great video footage,
Mm.
but they have to have good audio. I've seen beautiful films with shit audio, and that is way worse.
It's really rough to watch something that just
It's
sounds
rough.
terrible.
Oh, yeah. It really sticks out like a sore thumb. So, did that in high school. I went on to uni and I did a science degree. I always liked the technical side of stuff,
Mm.
but I still kept up with my arts things and then took a bit of a break, thought about what I really wanted to do. And then I found the audio engineering degree. And I was like, you know what? I think this is something that would really tickle these parts of my brain. The
Mm.
super technical, I've always loved tech. I've had pretty much got given headphones as a birthday present every year since I was probably 12.
Mm.
Lots of headphones. So it all kind of intertwined, just all these things I was interested in. And then I fell in love with the degree, became utterly obsessed because it's so tech heavy. It's a
Mm.
lot of planning, it's a lot of production. You get to be the person behind the artist,
It's
and
entirely your shit.
it's entirely your shit. And you got to make shit work too.
Yeah.
Like a musician can rock up and be ready to play, but if all your stuff isn't working, like that is on you. So it's also stressful,
Mm.
but I kind of thrived in that environment and then took that degree and really went with it,
Yeah.
really. Do you want me to talk about what happened after the degree?
Yeah, go for it.
Sure. Well, I did pretty well in my studies, I
Yeah.
must say, but I think it's because I had university experience a little bit beforehand. So I just took it all and made the sacrifice, moved to Sydney, and thankfully, one of my mentors at uni connected me up with a studio over in Sydney, and I got to work out of a studio.
Shout outs to Ryan.
Yeah, shout out to Ryan. Thank you so much for that. Really.
Yeah.
I worked at Rancom Street Studios for probably about around like on and off for about 8 months.
Yeah.
But Sydney's an expensive place, and if you're not living at home and you're trying to make ends meet, doing occasional studio work's not going to cut it. But Rancom Street Studio was amazing, full analog studio.
Wow.
So no Pro Tools plugins, everything's patched, everything's on onboard equipment. It's amazing using all that stuff and really beautiful microphones. There's actually someone who taught me in my very early years of uni that got me so addicted to microphones.
Yeah.
Like just obsessed with outboard gear and just like, how does this work? What can I run through this? How can I make it sound awesome? I'm gonna drown the hell out of these drums. I'm going to run it through tape. I'm going to compress it. I'm going to bring it back. So it was that inquisitive nature around that tech, working in that studio. It was just,
Was that Geo?
it was Geo
Yeah, he's still doing that.
and Keely, who was a sessional teacher here for a bit.
Right.
I had one-on-one sessions with Keely because some of the other guys in class didn't rock up. Thanks to those guys, I got like private 3-hour classes, just play around with stuff.
Huge.
And then I just took that into my own attitude. So I worked at this studio, I had a really great time, and then I went and worked for an AV company.
Mm.
We did like World Tech Expo, we did World Pride, Fashion Week. It was a crazy audiovisual company, and that was a huge awakening, right? Like,
Mm.
audio is sick. Audio is really complicated. Lighting and data and then film is this whole other beast. But I think once you know audio, you
Mm.
can cover the rest. Like once you know the signal flow, I mean, I think audio is the hardest it's going to get.
Sure,
So
yeah.
patching in lights and cameras and getting those feeds working, there are different things to be aware of. But I think because I knew so much about audio and all of its challenges, it made that stuff easier. So I
There's a
did,
lot of transferable skills
oh yeah,
between them, I'd say.
so much. So I think working for that AV company and doing such big events was really amazing, but it was really hard work.
Mm.
I know a lot of people now have gone to work in that space, all around Australia, and it's late night. It's lots of heavy lifting, lots of cable runs, lots of pulling shit around in the mud or bad weather, and there's so much you can't control. So I
Yeah.
think it takes resilience.
I just, finished working the Pixel Expo, like the big nerd convention
Yeah.
last weekend, and for that, I had to carry a drum kit from the stage all the way through Perth Convention Centre to the car park
Oh no.
because I couldn't find the trolley,
Oh no.
but
Yeah, that's the hard work.
yeah.
I mean, it takes patience, I think, with yourself to do that stuff. And my patience was weighed a bit thin. So my last job I did with them, I did a big installation at Amazon headquarters.
Mm.
They installed like a kind of like a podcast studio, and that was good, but it was like lots of just running cables, all day, slow kind of work. But it really got me thinking about, okay, I've done these different things while I'm here. I've made a lot of sacrifices. This is maybe not really what I want to do. And I think it
Mm.
takes a lot of courage to go, I'm going to stop doing this, even though it's what I want to do. This is the career that I'm looking for. It's actually not really making me super happy right now. And the work is too much. Like, you don't want to burn out early in. Like, I was only a
Mm.
year into my career straight out of uni. I think it took a toll on me. And I had to see that, you know what? This is great. But if I could come back to this in a few years, I'd probably be better prepared.
Oh, yeah.
So I stopped and I was like, you know what? I can't do this anymore. It's really hard work and I appreciate it, but I need to do something else. And I started doing live sound gigs at events and some stuff at venues. And then I took a bit of a break, which was definitely hard on the wallet. But I think it was important for me to take that time. And then Road came up and that was really lucky.
So they offered you the job?
I applied, I think, for electronics. I didn't even apply to be a part of service. I was like, I will solder
Yeah.
a board. Like
I will
just
sit in the dark
I will
connecting
just
wires all
it was an
day.
in. I mean, what actually happened was in my apartment building, I was getting the lift up from the car park.
Mm.
There was a guy in the lift and he had like a Road backpack on and a Road lanyard. And I just started talking to him. I was like, "Oh, you work at Road? Like, I'm an audio engineer." And I
Mm.
actually had no idea they were in Sydney, which
Mm.
is kind of bad on my part. But he was like, "Oh yeah, man, like, if you're interested, you should just apply for whatever you can
Mm.
because there's, an in is an in. If you've got an interest for something, like I'm sure they'll make use of you." And I applied for that and I didn't really hear too much back. And then I got a call one day being like, "Hey, we actually have a different role that we've not put up online yet.
Mm.
You've got all this audio experience. We think you'd be better suited to
Fuck
this.
yeah.
Do you want to come in and interview?" And I was like, it was like 2 o'clock. I was like, "Can I come at 4 o'clock today? Like, I'll go right
Yeah.
now." And they were like, "No, it's okay. Come in tomorrow." And yeah, came in and yeah, now Road. That's where I
Yeah.
am. So I was very grateful.
A very big important role.
Yeah, but I think if I didn't take the time to pause
Yeah.
and take a bit of a break, I wouldn't have, you know, I think I would have been working probably a night shift. I wouldn't have run into that guy in the elevator. I wouldn't have thought about applying for something else. Yeah, I think that was an important step in getting there. And now at Road, it's been a whirlwind, but it's amazing.
So I'll just quickly touch on it a little bit more. So like, what was it really like moving across the country for your career?
It was definitely a big sacrifice. But I think along the way, my partner and I, we both moved.
Mm.
We had an idea that it was something we might already have to do. I think Perth was a little tricky for entry level work, just for the both of us. I mean, he works in the games industry, so the stuff here is really self funded. And when I did internship work over here, I did a lot of music festivals, which was great fun. But it didn't seem like there was anything super consistent. And there was a few jobs that go around, but they were more of this like mid to mid senior level. And you're not that when you come out of uni. I mean, I really kind of did think I knew it all when I finished my degree. And
Yeah.
then you're suddenly at this
You're dropped in
massive
the thick of
venue.
it. You
Oh,
just
yeah. They're like, here's a desk. You need to be good to go in 2 hours.
yeah.
And it's something you've never used before. That is stressful. So you've got to pull from all of this knowledge. No teacher to ask. It's
Mm.
just you, not a class of people. Um, so it's tricky. But doing the move, I mean, we kind of thought we had to do it. The right opportunity came up for my partner, and he moved first, and then I packed up, sold everything. I mean, having to sell everything, move away from your friends and family, see all of that happen, you kind of don't get much time to think about it. You're
Very
kind of like,
confronting in a way.
yeah, you kind of just go, this is something I've got to do for me.
Yeah.
We're going to take a chance. But there was definitely a thought that there's more opportunity in some of these bigger cities, especially arts and tech kind of
Mm.
cities. And Sydney's kind of the place of the startup. So I wasn't nervous that I wouldn't find something. I knew I would find something. There's bound to be something.
Mm.
I didn't know what that was going to be. I didn't know how serious it was going to be. But I reached out to a few networks, like I said. Ryan really connected me up with that studio and reached out to a few other people that were working at, marketing firms or doing podcast editing, and just tried to see who was around that I could connect with, and used LinkedIn to just bug old alumni and just be like, hey, I see you're working at this place in Sydney. What's that like?
Mm.
What should I be preparing myself for? Trying to do a bit of that networking. But honestly, when you try to move states and you're selling everything, you didn't have a lot of time. So it was a big leap of faith. And I think the hardest thing was leaving your friends and family, like your support network.
Yeah.
Like they get you through your studies as well. So I think leaving those people was the hardest part about the move, besides the taking a chance.
Yeah.
But I think well worth it.
I suppose in a way, it was really good that you moved with your partner as well, because then
You
you at
have
least still have
somebody.
somebody. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, have you ever considered doing the move?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And what would it be for you? Like, why would you want to do the move?
Yeah, it's the exact same point that you said, where it's just I find it's kind of rough to find a startup in Perth.
Yeah.
So it has to be a move over east where there is more work.
Yeah.
And yeah, just sort of taking that leap, seeing where that goes.
I think so. I mean, I do know people here with really cool jobs,
Mm.
or, the audio isn't their full time thing all the time. And it doesn't have to be for them either. They're working on films. I've done film editing and stuff for people that are here while I've been in Sydney. There's no shortage of stuff to do, but work to be paid for,
Yeah.
it's a tricky thing. And I think it's a decision you have to make of, is this something I need to be doing 100% of my time? Or is this something I want to be doing generally all the time, but I can make ends meet in another way? Because there's no wrong way to do it.
Mm.
If you love it, you can do it in either way.
So how would you describe the comparison between Sydney and Perth's like audio scenes in general, like live music or just opportunities in anything in the audio sector, really?
There's definitely just more going
Just
on.
more.
More people, more events, more that kind of stuff, especially if you're going to do audiovisual stuff, like
Mm.
those concerts, events, conferences. They might not be the most interesting all the time, or you might even get roped into some live events or public events where it's a forum for different cultures or different opinions. Those things are a little tricky to do if they don't always align with you as well.
Mm.
But you're there to, do work and you want to get your way in. I think there's a lot more people in Sydney, but there's a lot more opportunity. So while it is competitive, I think kind of the ratio between what work is there and what people are there, it feels a little more even. You feel like you're at least considered more than you are here. And I think that's a really big differentiator between
Yeah.
the two.
Sure.
But also, like when I did my studio work, people are a little private and a little bit protective about the work that they have.
Mm.
And maybe that's fair. I don't really think about my work that way. Like when I went into working in studios, I was so open. I wanted to learn. I wanted to hear from other people. I wanted to, kind of expand and, grow my wings in
Mm.
this industry. And something I didn't think I was going to come across from was a little bit of hostility, or maybe just people being a little bit more protective over their space, which I think is something you have to consider, especially studio work. Sydney's a big place. Lots of people want your job.
Mm.
So I did find it difficult to kind of get in and make friends and make
A
these
very
connections.
competitive sort of space, would you say?
I would say so.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just not something you think about until you're there and you're like, "Oh, this guy doesn't like, it's not super friendly or
Mm,
doesn't I'm not really getting asked to do a lot of engineering shifts or something because these people wanna protect the integrity of their own job. They want the clients.
mm.
They want more stuff at the studio or, they want this particular audio job." So it can be a little tricky. Sometimes there's less community. Think that's something that Perth does have, is when there is opportunity, people really do share it with each other. Like before I left, I got a job role at Fringe Festival
Yep.
to do a bunch of audio producing for all the different shows that were going on, and I was moving. So I called up 2 friends. I was like, "Hey guys, this would be perfect for you guys. You have to do it. I put your name forward. They're gonna reach out to you. You're gonna do it."
Mm.
Right before I left, I had a friend do a similar thing. He was like, "Hey, I'm leaving my residency at this venue. There's this job going, like, you have to do it." There's a lot more of that referral and that giving stuff out to each other, supporting each other, like boosting each other up.
I've sort of found the same thing as well. Like, I'm still extremely fresh into audio engineering, but it seems like there's this really cool dynamic where it's like, it's semi competitive, but it's also still very, yeah, like friendly,
Yes.
where it's like, I want the job. I want to be better than everyone else, but I also want all of my friends to succeed at the same time.
Yeah, well, you want your mate on side, right?
Yeah.
Like we were saying earlier, like, audio stuff can be tricky.
Yeah.
Like, if you had your mate buy you to lift that drum kit all the way across the city, like, that's just making both your days easier and you're both getting paid to do it. So,
I- Shit.
well, hey,
It's fine.
maybe next time, right? Maybe that's why you need a friend as well.
Yeah.
But I think, that's something that's really unique about here, and I know that's the same not just for audio. That's
Mm,
the same for film, that's the same for games. It's that community building, bringing your people on side. Even the people that I did my major project with at uni, those people called me up and been like, "Our audio person has left this project. We need an audio person. Can I rely on you? Can I get your help?"
mm.
And I think it's that connection, that personability that seems to be here more. So I hope that when opportunities come up in Sydney, if I know people that are going to move over or people that are looking to move, if I know what their work is like, I know what their work ethic is like, if I'm going to give my recommendation, I do want to trust that person. But I think doing that is a really great way to bring more people into the industry. And then they can come back to Perth and they'll be at that different level and they'll absolutely kill it.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that's really big and important here. So that's why you got to be nice. You got to make friends, and especially if you're going through uni with these people, you got to work hard on your projects, right? Like you got to remember, oh, that person was an excellent camera operator,
Yeah.
or this person was so good at this podcast. Now I've got to do this podcast. I'm going to bring that person on side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's something that I've been trying to do at the very least. We'll get into a little bit of the reads now with it. So, like, how would you describe the overall stability of the creative industries compared to like more traditional sectors?
It's definitely, I mean, if we're just going post COVID, right? We're not considering all the shutdowns and things, and it's there's lots of different areas of the audio industry. Like there's all these different sectors. There's so much in live and so much in production and events. And
Mm,
I think that's been a really tumultuous environment recently. So many music festivals cancelled.
mm,
And that's not just tricky for artists, that's really tricky for crew. When I did World Pride, we didn't have enough crew members. We flew people over from New Zealand to come help and set stuff up. It was such a big event and there was so much other stuff happening at the same time. But then I'm seeing all these festivals get cancelled and all these people lose out on opportunity. I think that's a really tricky thing that's happening at the moment. And it's really on the creative arts sector to prop each other up and start doing things maybe small again. Do smaller side shows, do smaller things. Let's like build up again. I
something a
think,
little bit more like Fringe Fest or
yes,
even smaller.
Fringe or like when Laneway used to come to every city, they also used to do side shows beforehand. Like the
Mm,
acts would arrive the week before and they do these smaller shows. I think bringing things down to that level again and then growing it up to be more what the next generation wants, more what the next people want is a cool thing. And I'm starting to see some of that happen.
yeah.
But when it comes to, I mean, I work technically really in product design and manufacturing. It's a very different environment. There's lots of work and opportunities, but I'm not necessarily like hitting play and recording things. It's a different side of audio. You really have to be a good project manager. You have to be a really good people person. And, there's a lot of people who come into the industry and they just want to mix their band and they want to
Mm,
make an album and they want to know how to do it behind the scenes. I think that's really, really good. But then there's people who want to have these bigger ambitions. And I think it's more than just knowing how to do stuff in audio, but understanding the people, these bigger processes, how to manage yourself, how to manage a project. I think those are just as important skills that need to be coming in through the industry because there are opportunities in those places. So, yeah, I mean, across the board, it's hard. Like, I've done different things, I've seen people come from all around. But I think overall, the thought is that it's hard to get something full time locked in for a long time. It's I'm on this film for 3 months. Now I have 3 months worth of work. It's kind of that little bit more gig economy or
You
that
just have to keep
contracting work.
finding the next thing.
Keep finding the next thing. And I think that's why, like we said earlier, the Perth place about it is really good
Mm.
because how else are you going to find that next thing if you don't have word of mouth? I think it's those people and those referrals that get you through those next things. But
So you'd say that networking is like a key
yeah,
skill
yeah,
to have.
I think so, but not in the same way where it's like consulting networking, like going to these conferences and handing out
Mm.
business cards. It's building really respectful relationships with people in the same industry or adjacent industries with you. You want to be known as a good, reliable person that can get shit done. I think that is it as its simplest.
Yeah.
Um, but I think what smaller cities, maybe like Perth, really need is a bit of a reinvigoration of opportunity. And I think what hopefully will come is the people that have moved to these bigger cities will learn and grow and then decide they want to do their own things and bring that back to places like here. And I think we can see that happening with Adelaide. I know a lot of studios set up in Adelaide. A lot of people went there to start something new and fresh
Mm.
and kind of bring up a whole crew of new animators and audio people. And some big companies are setting up there. And even Perth with the film studio that they're building,
Yeah.
I think there's stuff on the horizon. As for right now, I'd say it's tricky, but build yourself up now, get those connections, get your skills up, because when that stuff goes out, it's people are gonna want it. And if you wanna get that opportunity, I think, yeah, you gotta be ready for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just the same thing where it's just like you wanna be better than everyone else, but you also want everyone else to succeed, sort of like
Yeah, I think
yeah.
you have to put yourself forward. I mean, like in the studio space, like you kind of have to fight for your
Yeah.
opportunity. You're going into the industry, you want a job, you've got to go out there.
Yeah. No
You
shit.
know, does it worry you about where things are at the moment?
Uh,
Or do you feel like there's lots to choose from?
See, that's what I don't know.
That's fine.
Yeah. So it's like I'm sure there are opportunities out there, but it is just like you sort of have to dive in head first and see what you find, isn't it?
I think, even when I was first looking kind of in a similar place where you are now,
Mm.
it's not a conventional industry to know where to find the work. Like, it's not like they're all just posted on Seek and that's where all the roles are. I think that is a tricky part
Mm.
about the nature of this industry. There's stuff out there, but
It's just
getting the role, getting into
extremely
that project,
unconventional.
yeah,
Yeah.
unconventional as hell. I did an interview with this guy who wanted me to be a boom pole operator, and the interview went for 3 hours, and it was just a mad chat in his house. He was really interesting guy.
Yeah.
And then for the last hour, he basically just got me to hold a boom pole and just move around with a mic and just see how I could track him. And I remember leaving that, be like, "No, this is not for me." And he was like, "No, this is not for you." But I only got that opportunity because, a teacher was like, "Oh, this guy's kind of looking for his next little protege, like to
Yeah.
bring someone up?" So I think that's the last side of, our industry is there's a lot of older people in audio who I think are ready to pass down the baton of
Mm.
knowledge. And so they should. Gatekeeping all the way till, you're getting real old is, not great. You want to bestow the next generation
Yeah.
skill and work and connections and opportunities. So I think there's a responsibility of some of our more experienced people within audio and film
Mm.
to pass down those opportunities and knowledge.
I absolutely think that's the case as well.
Mm.
Yeah. So how do you think your career affects your mental health?
Ooh, well, we touched on this a little earlier,
Yeah.
but I think when I was doing the audiovisual kind of work, those late nights, the heavy lifting, it can be
Can
tricky.
kill you a little bit?
Yeah, I think it's the isolation that's the hardest for me. When I was doing that work, we weren't a huge company.
Mm.
And when you're going job to job, sometimes it's just you. Like it was me driving the biggest van I've ever driven in my life, filled with hundreds of thousands of dollars of audio gear, like blasting pop music while driving this thing, like 110 through the craziest streets of Sydney. And, you have to make yourself enjoy it.
Mm,
But I think the late nights, heavy lifting, I mean, it's hard to talk about, but the toxicity of men in this industry, I think is something that I was warned about.
mm.
Like, oh, the old guys, they're not always super friendly, or, they'll swear and you've just got to get over it. Or if they have a freak out, you've just got to deal with it. I'm not someone who takes that stuff pretty lightly. Like, I've been on gigs where I've seen these men who are much older than I am, have much more experience, throw keyboards, scream and yell at something that's not working because they've rocked up and not everything's patched yet.
Mm.
I think now that is actually kind of unacceptable. It's not the rock and roll days anymore where you could just get pissed and still do the job and act like an asshole. You just won't get asked back to those things now,
Yeah.
even if you have 20 years experience. And I did a few gigs where these guys were so rude and really inconsiderate. And I say guys because it's a male dominated
Mm.
industry. And it was all men that I encountered that were really hard to get along with. And if you're new and you're just making your in and you're bloody like lifting like 50-kilo looms, running things across conferences or festivals, I mean, you're not always like super bubbly and happy all
No,
the time, slinging stuff through mud. And then these guys give you a really hard time. They're really impolite. And I think that is not a great environment to always be in. And I
no
think it's
real appreciation or consideration for
for others.
yeah.
No, and it can become quite self-centered and they can think they're like the star of the show. I think the best way to make headway in your career is to lift people up around you
Mm.
because when you get opportunity, they're going to be there to congratulate you, but they're also going to be there to support you when that gets really tough. I've seen a lot of people who claw their way to the top, swear, scream, yell, fight their way to be the demanding, dictator, and they get there and they feel super powerful.
Mm.
But as soon as they slip up, there's so many people underneath them ready to pull the rug. And I think that's not the way to go anymore. So I think that affects a lot of people's mental health. I mean, it's also a stressful industry. Broadcast is live. You don't want anything to go wrong. A lot is on the line.
Yeah.
So I think that's an area where we're seeing change because a lot of young people, especially younger men, are getting much better about speaking about their well-being,
Mm.
being more conscious of environments that aren't working for them. Like I left a job because it was just isolating and way too much hard work, and I was just getting pushed in all the wrong directions. And when I left that job, it was very clear from the crew that I was working with that they were so disappointed, and not in me, but a little bit at themselves because they're like, "Oh gosh, I can't believe we've kind of burnt you out already."
Yeah, we sort of just pushed you away.
Yeah. And they were like, "Damn, like we kind of lost an opportunity to make this really good for you." And I
Mm.
was telling them too, I was like, "I'm exhausted. I need a day off." And they're like, "No, you need to unpack all these cables." And I get there's push and shove, but I stood up for myself and still didn't get the time that I needed. So I left.
Mm.
And I think people are starting to think a little bit more inwards and go, actually, it's our responsibility to kind of take care of these people. It's a lot of people work.
Yeah.
So the respect needs to go both
I
ways.
think there's sort of like you said, how like currently like a lot of younger men are starting to be less toxic and a little bit more aware of how they're doing and stuff like that. I think it's also at the same time a lot of people are starting to realize their worth.
Yes.
So
And stand up for themselves.
yeah,
And a lot more women in this industry now.
absolutely.
And we don't want them to be driven out of this kind of work
Mm.
because of those people that, are kind of either gatekeeping or being, inconsiderate or think that women can't do these jobs,
Mm.
which is so not right. And I've had women work me harder than a lot of these men in these jobs too. So I think that's a really good change in the industry. It still needs a long way to go, especially in audio.
Mm.
But seeing, a lot more women behind the music desk, a lot more women, camera operators and running these venues and working these really tight shifts just like anyone else can, I think that's important too. Diversity within the work makes a happier and healthier place
Yeah, for sure.
for sure.
I'd agree. Um, have you read MPEG, like Music Producers and Engineering Guild survey about like Australia's current audio producing like
I don't know
landscape?
if I have.
So it was like 90% of people who identified themselves as musical engineers
Mhm.
or producers were men.
Yep.
Um, about 60% of them worked 40 hours a week,
Mm.
but like 2% were trans, 8% were women, something around that sort of ballpark.
Mhm.
And basically anybody who had like consistent full-time work, the vast majority of them were men in their like 40s up with 20 years experience.
Yep. And it feels like it. When you're
Yeah.
doing the work, it really does feel like it. And I think that was a tricky part about the hurdle of getting into the industry was like I didn't see anybody that was like me.
Mm.
There was no one to connect with my age. Um, there was not a lot of gender diversity within these spaces. And the language, the locker room talk, and the boys' clubs was real. I mean, I was doing World Pride when we worked at World Pride,
Mm.
we all had to do a bit of training around etiquette and language. And that was really good that World Pride had that set
Yeah,
up.
absolutely.
But did these men follow those codes? Absolutely not.
Mm.
We'd be in the booth and just some of the language. I remember turning around at one of these gigs because I was so disappointed. And, it's a hard working day. And I think I was just at my wits' end. Turned around and I said, "Sorry, the way you're talking is just absolutely unacceptable.
Mm.
I do not give a shit about each of you and what you want to say enough. I don't know half of you, but we're at a really important event right now.
Mm.
We've done training to do this properly, and the way you're speaking is just so appalling. Like if I was a producer and I was doing this again next year, we don't get to host World Pride all the time. I would not ask any of you back.
Yeah.
It's just inconsiderate. It's not hard to be a decent human being. And it's harder to stand up for yourself. And I feel like there's a greater responsibility of these events to veto the people that are not doing the right thing. They
Mm.
just think they can get away with it. And I think that's really disappointing. But like you say, the new people that do come in, I think are holding their head a lot higher
Mm.
and speaking up. I think that is important for the industry's reputation,
Yeah.
the kind of acts that we see on stages as well, the kind of people represented in media. I think it's all going in the right direction, but people need to keep pushing, keep fighting for sure.
Do you think that like identifying as a member of the LGBT community has like affected your opportunities or made it like work difficult or easier in any way?
I think, I mean, I'm still a man, I'm still white. So
Yeah.
it adds a lot to, the doors that are just automatically opened for me anyway. So I don't think it's closed anything off for me. I've definitely heard rhetoric or people have said some nasty things or
Mm.
slurs at me before, but that's not going to stop me from working.
Oh, fuck no.
And I don't let it either. But I think I've seen a lot more people of, a wider range of genders and a lot of people of color have it a lot harder. And I think that's when, like I said, I couldn't even see myself, even just my age in this industry.
Mm.
So now I'm starting to see it more. But I think it's on the people who are going to be hiring or running shows to get diverse crews, get diverse people, because then your show's going to be better anyway. You just have people of way more, history, more opinions, different kind
Yeah.
of thoughts too. You're going to produce something more unique. I think that's really important. So, you know, I think, no, it's not affected me.
Mm.
And I'm in a privileged position to let that happen, but I also don't let that happen.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't let it get too past me. And I think, I'm privileged to have that attitude. And the people who do cop a lot of flack and still push through and still work in these industries, it's brave.
Mm.
And, if they want me to stand by them and support them when they need that help and when they need that support, that's exactly what I'm going to do because that's the kind of industry and future I want to see. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I
That's
think that
sort of the
solidarity.
industry that we just need in general, I think.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, so we'll just pivot off of that sort of stuff for
sure.
now. Sorry,
No, that's all right.
I
Went
got
deep
really
into
into it.
that.
No,
We
I was
did,
like, "Oh,
yeah,
man,
yeah.
this is great." Um, so do you think there's a growing need for diversification in, like, your skill set to maintain,
So
like,
moving
a
to skill
career?
set. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Diversifying your skills is super important, and
Mm.
especially in your studies. I mean, we're thankful we covered so much, right?
Mm.
Studio work, we did film, we did games, we did animation work, sound design, but then live sound stuff. I think you have to have all of that, right? As much as you can take in, the better. It also does not have to be at a university. I think any way where you are learning, whether that's hands-on work experience, going to shows, performing in
Yeah.
shows, I know a lot of people who are now really successful audio engineers, and they did like a Cert 3 in production in high school, like
Mm.
stage production. And whatever way that you find learning is going to work for you and the way that you can pick up skills, I think you just have to gravitate towards that, whether that's school or industry experience. But the more you can touch on, I think the greater your awareness is of opportunity that's there. Like we're talking about getting a job, right?
Mm,
If I've not ever done live sound for a film, if I've not done location recording, I'm
yeah.
never going to look for that opportunity.
No.
So trying all these different things, I think, is important to give you a better understanding, like better hindsight on
Yeah.
what's there.
Know what to sort of expect as well, I guess. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, I came into this not exactly knowing what I wanted out of my, degree, and then being able to dip my toes into every single sort of facet of audio, it's just like, wow, like, live sounds really cool, and I'm having a great time doing audio for film, like, maybe
Mm,
that's something I'd wanna do later, and maybe just, like there are people I know who are like, "Yeah, I'm an in-studio, recording and mixing engineer, but I am also writing the score for a film and mixing that as well."
mm.
So like, yeah.
Do you think that, like, what has for you been the biggest challenge in learning all these different things? Maybe something you didn't expect. Like, what really?
I think it actually is just like picking up like knowledge for different programs and technologies and learning stuff like that. Like, say, if you're doing sound for games, you do have to learn a little bit about like Wise or Unity or a
Mm,
program like that. Or if you're doing film, it's picking up new tech, like what Isotope's doing with RX, and
mm,
also just a lot of like, I'll segue into it, like AI and the
mm.
tools for that. Um, there's just, I feel anyway, I wanted to grab your opinion on it, but I feel like diversification of your skill sets for stuff like that and being ready to pick up next gen tech and
Mm.
using stuff like that is super important.
I think so. I mean, like, kind of sticking on that side for you, like, when you've tried, doing audio for games and audio for film, it's not necessarily what you'd expect to always be doing coming into this kind of degree.
Mm.
But, you know, you were saying you didn't have any idea coming in to your degree of what you wanted to do on the other side. Do you feel like most people do?
I feel like I was in a very weird circumstance where, like, I want to say a good 4 out of 5 people knew how to play a musical instrument.
Mm.
Where it's like, yeah, I have a history in music. I already know how to like sort of use a DAW,
Yep.
and this is me like not. I'm an ex tradie.
Yep.
I have no experience in audio whatsoever. I was just like, man, this seems down my alley in a similar way to you, where it was like a familial musical background and love of that,
Hmm.
but no real, I don't know, history with it.
No hands on
Yeah.
in that way.
So
I'm just like just thinking about like the opportunities that are out there.
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't have known those things existed
No.
unless you put your fingers in all those pies, I guess.
Yeah. Absolutely. To touch on AI though,
Mm.
um, do you think there's a role for like technological advancement like AI and automation and stuff like that in like the future stability of the jobs in these creative sectors?
I think so. I mean, there's so much talk about AI at the moment,
Yeah.
and AI is great. There's probably a lot more AI we've been using than we think. A lot of machine learning and stuff goes on in the background that, wasn't called AI and now it is because
Yeah.
it's the marketing term and everyone wants to be involved in
Yeah.
AI.
We want to be on the ground floor of it. Like we want to feel cool. So we're using Chat GPT.
Yeah, well, I
Yeah.
mean, even like there's some really smart plugins and really smart tools
Oh
that,
yeah.
are using a machine kind of learning algorithm to deliver something for you. I think AI is a really useful tool. It gets my work done faster for the things that are more menial and day to day. And it helps me produce things that are more meaningful because I don't have to spend as much
Mm.
time on the minute. So I think as a tool, there's absolutely a place for it. I mean, we've all heard the AI songs that come out and they're not great.
They're really
They're not
rough.
great. I mean, some are okay, but I think it still requires a lot of personal intervention. You've really got to know what you're feeding it so you can get exactly what you want out of it.
Mm.
So it's not for everything. There's not a one AI that's going to provide a solution for absolutely everything. But people are going to make really unique tools that are going to be able to, edit an entire podcast for you.
Yeah.
That's great. Now I can release more episodes. Now I can focus more on getting guests on because maybe I don't have to spend as much of my time doing that editing. Now I could probably pick up some extra gigs, get more money, build myself a set. Like
Mm.
use it as a tool to diversify your skill set, diversify the opportunity you have. Um, there's always I even remember being really young, and there was this website where you could enter, like, a job title, and it's like, "Will robots take over your job when you're older?"
Yeah.
And, lights time now?
I didn't even
Oh, there we go.
there it is.
The AI, it's listening.
Yeah. I just
It's
realized I
turning the
haven't turned
lights
off
off.
that light switch. That's my bad.
That's
Whoopsie.
fine. No, I was saying, I think that, yeah, use it as a good tool. I used that website that was like, "Will a robot take over your job?" And you'd
Mm.
enter, like, florist, and it's like, "No." You enter, like, computer scientist, and it's like, "You're not gonna have a job when you're older."
No.
And I don't think that's the case now. I think it's advancing tech,
Yeah.
and it's making some stuff easier for us. I'm keen to see what it looks like in 10 years. I mean, when I'm older and I've got my kids
Mm.
and I'm still working in this industry, maybe AI lets me work 4 days a week instead of 5.
Do you, like, buy the whole, like, boogeyman sort of shtick to it where it's like AI is going to take your job? It's gonna mix songs for you, so there'll be no use for you. All the musos will just use that instead. They'll buy the AI mixing plugin.
I don't think so. I
No.
mean, even the film work that I've done, I've tried a few of these tools now. They're not even getting close to what I can do.
Mm.
So I think AI is probably going to make the tools we use more advanced,
Easier.
which is going to make it easier for us. I mean, even if it could mix a whole film,
Mm.
like maybe for a small film creator, that is a good thing, right? Like we were talking about at the start, you know, smaller cities, smaller areas, there's less opportunity, less paid opportunity, right?
Mm.
So if I'm not having enough money come in, but I want to make this film, I might not be able to pay an editor. You can't scream and yell at that person just because they don't have the resources, but they want to make something they're interested in.
Yeah.
Give them the opportunity to use these great tools to assist them.
Mm.
And then you hope that if they do get funding or a grant to make a film, they better damn hire an editor.
Yeah.
And that editor is probably going to use a tool and be way more aware of what AI can do to speed up that process anyway.
Yeah.
But we like what people make. We like human intervention. We like the personability when it comes to a studio.
Mm.
You know, I've been a studio assistant engineer before. It's literally my job to plug in microphones and hype up the musician and tell them that sounded great.
Yeah.
Or here's a reference song. This sounds really good as well. It's that in person connection that can foster amazing creativity.
Yeah.
And that's something that a guy on a computer or just anybody with a tool is not always going to get.
No.
So, yeah, it's going to be helpful. It's not going to take my job, and especially not my job currently. Half the people I know can't even do the job that I'm doing. That's why I'm the only one that does it. So I doubt some AI tool is going to take it from me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Sorry. No, it's at the forefront of my brain right now, especially because, in another room where we are, we can hear guitar playing because the band is recording, and I know, yep, when I edit this, I'm busting out Isotope and completely cutting that out.
Yeah, I mean, like, but that's great. Now we have this, multifunctional space where someone
Yeah.
can record over there and we can do this here, and that tool's gonna help you. I
Yeah.
mean,
It's not gonna just, like, bleed into it and we have to live with it.
well,
Yeah.
imagine how much time you're gonna have to spend if you had to manually scrub that out yourself. Probably a decent amount of time. So, hey, you get some
I
more of your
would
day
be
back.
miserable.
Yeah, I mean, you might still be miserable,
I
with the AI tool anyway because 'cause they're not all that
probably.
great. But, yeah, the ones that are good, sure, let's make use of them.
Alright, I got 2 questions left
Sure.
because 'cause we've had a good yap. So what advice would you give to someone entering the creative industries about, like, maintaining personal and financial security in what seems to be a pretty unstable environment?
Sure. I think even you and I both had the same thing where we went into this with not a very clear idea of what we wanted to do.
Mm.
I think that actually is pretty good. Going in with an open mind, ready to accept different opportunities, I think is really important. And go towards something that you gravitate towards. You might not know what that is straight away, also. You might need more experience to figure out what you want to do. I mean, when I did my studies, I didn't even consider doing live sound. I was like, I'm probably not interested in that. And then I did a lot of it and I was like, this actually really works for me. So when you do find that thing, embrace it and think about it in a way where you can structure, a way of your future as to doing that thing.
Yeah.
I think that's important for your mental health to do something that empowers you, you feel inspired about, and you're not going to feel inspired about it every day. But think back to the person, maybe 6 months ago who did feel inspired and use
Mm.
that to remember your goals and your ambitions and go forward. And with the financial instability, I mean, not every opportunity you have has to be the full time thing,
Yeah.
especially not at the start. So don't take it in strides if you can't find something that works exactly for you and that is full time. Still create work, still do the hard work.
Mm,
Um, this industry is hard. It takes hard work, I think. But if you're passionate and you're inspired, it's a great way to keep yourself motivated. So, work on the things that excite you, do smaller projects if that's going to work for you, and keep moving forward. I mean, we have to keep creating, we have to keep trying, you have to keep pushing, you have to make space for yourself. It takes work ethic, but I think to get around all of that, I mean, be a good person,
yeah.
have fun and keep your connections. Like, I don't wanna be that person that's like, have a fun time."
Yeah.
But if you're friendly, you come in with a smile, you're ready to work, you are polite to everyone around you, you make sure you introduce yourself, get the names of these people. Gosh, add them on LinkedIn if you have to, right? But set those impressions, go in with a good state of mind and impression where you can. Sell yourself a little because that, I think, is a tool that people forget, which is selling yourself.
Yeah.
Like, you're there to offer a service or you're a product in yourself. If you're gonna get yourself over those lines and into those other areas, you gotta vouch for yourself. So, find what inspires you so you can do that. It's not easy to always sell
Mm.
yourself and think, "I'm the best." It's not about being the best. It's just about doing what matters to you and getting there, getting to your goal.
I've found personally that a lot of it is just like it's a confidence thing
Yeah.
as well. Like it's like you sort of have to psych yourself up at some point.
Oh, yeah, live in a bit of a delusion with it. Like,
Yeah.
you need to sell yourself. I have a friend that's an animator, and he did a film degree and hardly did any animation in his degree, and now is a full-time animator because he went into that being like, "I can do this.
Mm,
I might not have done it at this scale, or I might not have done this specific program, but you've gotta sell yourself. You've gotta go, 'I can do this.'
mm,
If you're capable of learning, you can do anything, so sell yourself to these people that are looking to hire people or where are looking for work. Boost yourself up, live
mm.
in that delusion, you know a bit more than you do, and then, yeah, you might get stuck in front of a desk where you don't know what you're doing, but you can learn.
Yeah.
So don't go, "Oh my god, that job listing requires all these skills that I don't have." Apply for it anyway. Put yourself out there anyway, because you might get feedback in those spaces where you know where to improve, or you might be, you can get the opportunity to sell yourself and push yourself and get that opportunity. You're versing everyone else. Gotta put yourself up there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Okay, so the final one is it's a little bit cringy. It's a little bit entrepreneurial,
Uh-huh.
but so like, how would you define success within your career or just in general? Like,
Oh gosh, pretty early on, but that's a tricky one. I think
yeah,
success. A lot of people say success means different things to everybody.
which is why I wanted to ask
Yeah.
because I really wanted to get this sort of opinion where, like, like it's easy to say success is having lots of money and a nice house and stuff like that, but that's
Yeah.
not always the fulfilling option.
No, I think I when I think of myself and I'm going, okay, if I'm telling people about what I'm doing as well, other people have different opinions on what they think is successful. So when I tell my parents about what I do,
Mm.
they're more interested in about career progression or how much money you're earning. Other people want to know what you're creating and whether that fulfills you. So sometimes the perception you give about what you do, other people are going to define your success for you. It's not about how other people define your success, as like you're saying, it's about
Yeah,
what you define as your success. For me, when I was looking for work, there's some things that I know make me really happy. I like working with other people.
yeah,
I like working in a collaborative workspace. I do like a challenge. Like, I like things to be difficult because I like working under pressure. I like to troubleshoot. I just love hitting a roadblock and then finding the solution. Like, nothing's more rewarding than that. It builds myself, it builds my confidence, it builds my character, but you get to also do it with other people. So I had this idea in my mind around the kind of place I would like to work in, not necessarily the role that specifically I want to do.
mm,
And I've attained a good amount of that already. So I'm very grateful to be able to do that. I think that's where I feel the most success. I'm going, I feel challenged, fulfilled, still inspired, and I'm doing something where I can achieve a goal at the end of the day, or I can produce an outcome, and that's what makes me feel successful. That's how I've defined success.
yeah,
So I think, other people might not ask me questions about that, I'm glad you've asked the question about it because everyone does have a different idea.
Yeah.
But I don't know, I'm gonna ask the same back to you. When you're thinking about your future and your success,
Mm.
is it holding, a Grammy? Or is it, you know, being in a wholesome environment? Or is it a really long, prosperous career? Like what is it for you when you look forward? You'd be like, if I'm gonna be successful, this is the vision I have for myself.
Yeah. So, it's so funny that I've asked you that question and I don't really have an answer.
Well, you've got to now. I had to make up
I'm
one.
on the spot. Fuck.
You put me on the spot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think just if I'm working in a job that just fulfills me emotionally and I could still be able to live day to day in whatever shape or form that is, then I think that's successful. I don't know. I think living a modest life isn't something that should be discounted in any way.
Definitely.
So I don't know. I just,
I
if,
think sometimes the more money you have, actually, the more stressful it's gonna get anyway. Find what your content is,
mm,
and then, like, go a little bit above
I
that,
think
right?
that's what it is like I just like to be content with where
Yeah.
I am and
Like,
like and where I'm at.
I love my home that I'm renting.
Yeah.
I love my dog that I have in my apartment. We live in an area where we get to still go out and enjoy things. I have the opportunity to fly to friends' weddings and take
Mm,
some leave from work. Like, there's so much more outside of your career that fulfills you. So if you find a job that also still allows you to live the rest of your life, that's pretty
I think that's
successful.
success.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
It's not putting all of your things into one bucket, I think. Being able to still live somewhat of a free life, not bound to the chains of the workforce,
Yeah.
I think is great. And, like, I can still go and mix live shows on, like, a
Yeah.
Friday night or something, you know? Like, that is so grateful to be able to do that. And they say, like, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your
Mm.
life. I think that's a crock of shit
Oh, yeah, dude.
because you
Are you kidding
still
me?
have to work. You
Yeah.
still have to go to work. But like you said, if you do something that fulfills you and allows you to fulfill all the other facets of your life,
Mm.
then you don't think about work all the time. No, that's about everything else you're gonna do.
Yeah.
So I think that's important.
Wicked. All right. Well, we'll leave it there.
Great.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks. We really yapped on, and I probably should have asked you more questions, but I
You didn't
appreciate
have
you
to ask me shit.
putting you on the spot at the end there. It's good. Yeah. And I think, you know, I've got a long way to go still. I hope my career is long, and who knows where it's gonna take me in this industry, and I
Mm.
really do hope the same for you, and you go out and find those opportunities as well, and hey, if you're ever in Sydney, do hit me up. If you need a job, I'll see what I can do,
Yeah.
and that's, you know, I think we gotta stick with friends and stick with people that are family, and,
Yeah.
hopefully we'll all be in this industry for a really long time and make it better.
Yeah. Fuck
Yeah, fuck yeah. That sounds good.
yeah. All right. Great. Thank you. We can cut it there.